Special thanks to these companies for being long-term partners of this channel.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Zach. Here we mostly talk about overlanding, but occasionally talk about tech. Today I'm going to be talking about the new M1 Pro MacBook Pro, which I just recently got in the mail. There's kind of mixed results as to whether people wanted me to make this video or not, but the majority said I should, so here I am. Also, don't expect me to, make a lot of tech review videos on this channel. It's not really the purpose of the channel, but I really thought that these were important laptops, and honestly, they're kind of, rocking the world as far as performance goes, so I figured I'd give kind of my 2 cents on it and show you what I use my laptop for, that sort of thing. So if you primarily like overlanding content, but then like a little bit of tech content sprinkled in here or there, then you're definitely gonna like this channel, so consider subscribing. And like this video if it brings you any sort of value. Most of us all have to use computers, even if our hobbies maybe fall more in the overlanding or off-roading scene. And so, maybe you can still find some value from this video. So the big question that I really wanted to think about was, if you're gonna get the 16-inch laptop, like what are the specs that you should do? And specifically 32 gigabytes of RAM. So that's one thing that I think a lot of maybe engineers or people who edit with their machines, they try to decide between 16 and 32 gigabytes of RAM. And also, trying to pick between the two big processors that are offered now. That may be just questions that are crossing your mind. So we'll kind of get into all of that. And I'm also gonna do just a quick unboxing, and we'll show you what comes in the box and some of its features. So with that being said, let's kind of jump right into the unboxing. If you're looking for sort of a benchmarky type video, this is probably not gonna be for you, but I really wanna just give some real world experience and what I've found to be really impressive and great ease of use on this laptop. So let's jump in. So this is a 2021 M1 Pro 16-inch MacBook Pro. And the M1 Pros and the MacBook Pros, I'm sure people are gonna get that kind of confused, but basically we got the laptop in here, which I haven't actually seen in person yet. And yeah, just like all of the other YouTubers have said, it is thicker. These cables also are braided, which is a really cool new feature. Essentially, if you bought like replacement lightning cables for your iPhone that come as a braided cable on Amazon or things like that, it's gonna look exactly like that. So that's really nice. Just take that out of the packaging. I presume this is gonna need to be charged. And still a USB-C cable, so they didn't change anything on the one end, but MagSafe is back. If you used to have an older MacBook Pro, like the 2015 years, we had MagSafe then, so it's back, which is really awesome to see because everyone loved MagSafe and loved the tripping feature, so that if you walked by your laptop and tripped on your cord, you wouldn't have any issues. Block is a little bit different. The power wattage is a little higher now, so it's 140 watt, whereas my current 16-inch is just an 87 watt. And it comes with the charger and then basically just the laptop, so there's not a whole lot included in these boxes. So everyone has been mentioning that they actually come with black Apple stickers now instead of white ones, which I guess is only what they include in like the professional machines. So when I say professional, I mean basically the people that buy like the Mac Pros, the higher end desktops, and use them for video production or coding or things of that nature, and they need a lot of power, or 3D modeling, etc. They get black Apple stickers. I didn't even know that. I thought they all just were white ones, but these are really sweet. I'm a big fan of the color black, as you all know, like my car is basically blacked out. So these are cool. I'll have to set those aside, but other than that, I mean, no one really uses anything else in here. They've comes with the little instructions, and then I typically save these just in case I ever would need them in the future. If for some reason I have to return it because there's a problem or something like that, I typically will save all these little things, even though they're kind of just junk. I kind of just pack it back up the way it was and save it for a little while, just in case you'd run into problems. So another thing people have been mentioning is now it's got this MacBook Pro like etched in to the metal, which I think just looks really clean. And it's got some really tall rubber feet. So when you set it down, you can kind of see those rubber feet stick out quite a ways. So I think that's really nice because this is gonna be much more stable than the previous models. I found that the rubber feet on my old ones were so focused on being thin that sometimes this middle area would almost touch when you typed. So I'm really stoked for that. So there we go, we got the hello messages coming through. And just for comparison, I wanted to show, you know, what the old one looked like versus the new one. We've got basically, you can see on this one here that there's, you know, silver in between the keys, whereas this one has black between the keys. This one has like a dedicated, you know, square key for the Touch ID. You can see that. Whereas on this one, the Touch ID was built into the touch bar. And obviously there's no touch bar as well. So now we have these dedicated keys. They're nice for certain coding applications and also some editing, that sort of thing. So it's really nice to have those. When we set these two side by side, I'll just set my 2018 15-inch on top. Almost the exact same size. So this one was just a little bit longer and a little bit taller, but that's kind of to be expected because the screen is actually larger. It's got a 16.2 inch diameter instead of a 15.3. So you really aren't getting a much larger case for quite a bit larger screen. Also, if we look at these down the side here, this one is much thicker. So the awesome thing too is they brought back a lot of ports. Most people already know this, but I will just mention it. They have this HDMI port and then a lightning cable connection, a full-size SD card slot. And then on this side, we've got the MagSafe, 2 more lightning connections, and then a headphone jack. A lot of people were complaining about the HDMI not being like the highest spec. And I saw a really good note by another YouTuber who was basically saying, you know, this is the, oh no, I forgot my adapter or whatnot, sort of panic mode when you're in a meeting and you need to give a presentation, and so you plug in the HDMI cable.
Language. Press the return key.
It's yelling at me to set up the Mac. You know, when you're doing more professional workflows, you're just going to use these lightning ports, or you're going to use some sort of docking station with one lightning port. You're not going to probably use this HDMI port unless you want to, but if you do, then, you know, just you'll have to put up with the lower spec. But I thought that was a really good point because there's so many lightning ports that you can easily plug in a higher spec monitor to those and have no issues. Keyboard also has much more key travel than these old butterfly key ones. So that was always a gripe that people had with the older ones, is when you know, typed on them, they were really click-clacky and they had really short key travel. But these new ones, I think the keyboards are much better. They feel very similar to the keys that I had back on my 2015 laptops, except for they maybe just have a little less like key restriction. I feel like these are easier to type than that previous keyboard. But there's so much you gain with having a little bit thicker laptop. So I'm actually happy about this being thicker because that's where you get the longer key travel, the really big batteries, the larger ports on the sides. There's a lot of benefits with actually just keeping it slightly thick. So I think they really have a nice balance here. Wow, that screen is looking amazing. So the screen did get an upgrade, and a lot of people are pretty happy about this, but the bezels look really nice on this screen compared to my current one. They really maximize the screen space, and as you can see, there is a notch, but I've never been really too worried about the notch. A lot of people are saying this notch will fit right into the bar, so I think that'll be perfectly fine. But once we set it up, I'll show that a little more in detail. With this laptop, you can see that the bezel is kind of unbalanced, and the screen size is not as well utilized. And so I just think that the other screen's bezel looks a lot nicer as well. I'm trying to just give kind of a side-by-side comparison since I have this laptop right here to show kind of the previous generation versus this one. However, this isn't like the new 2019 and 2020 16-inch MacBook Pros, so maybe it's not the perfect comparison, but I still think it's kind of a nice side-by-side because I don't really think there's going to be a lot of people practically upgrading from the previous 16-inch to this one. but I think a lot of people who had, you know, a 2016 through 2018 15-inch, space gray MacBook Pro are probably going to be upgrading to this newer one. So one thing I will mention is I migrated my Mac Mini, which is an M1, to this. So it was Apple Silicon to Apple Silicon. If you're going to migrate from something else, you may want to just double check to make sure that like half of your applications actually need to just be deleted and reinstalled, because some companies are coming out with M1 optimized applications. And so if you install like a Windows or an Intel Mac version of that software, it may end up basically just being the slower version, and you could go and get a different version of the software. So I definitely recommend checking that out. All right, so as one does when they're video editing, most people use Premiere Pro. One thing people really care about is like how well you can scrub through the footage like this. So you essentially are just, sliding through and making sure that stuff actually works, because sometimes with a slower computer, it skips along and it won't update. So what I've done is I'm gonna zoom way in on my timeline here. And mind you, my timeline's not super crazy. I don't do quite as many special effects and sort of fancy things that a lot of, professional video editors do, but that's why I'm doing this video, because I want to show kind of how an everyday user would use it rather than like the pros. And so as you can see here though, it scrubs through it very quickly and really nicely. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to step this up a little bit. So I want to show how having, extra RAM and processor speeds is super helpful. And so I also use a lot of different, softwares within MATLAB or circuit simulators, or even like 3D modeling software. So I'm just going to kind of show you that I can basically come into my MATLAB here, and I'm going to run just like a small 3D modeling software, or 3D modeling script. So if you notice, it's going to start plotting this 3D model, right? Okay, and then we still have parallels running in the background for my modeling software, and then I can still scrub through my entire timeline as well, and it can play it back. All the while, my model is still currently running. So I just kind of wanted to show that basically you can run all of these things at the same time, which is pretty insane. On my old laptop, I could hardly even run my 3D modeling software in parallels at the same time. But here I can, basically run a script in MATLAB while also having parallels run in the background. And this is like, if you wanted to click in random spots on your circuit, it's kind of small, but I can zoom in a little bit here. I have like a smaller like transistor circuit running here, so you can click around and run these things all while having Premiere Pro in the background. Like I said, you can still scrub through Premiere Pro. And in the future, if I ever wanted to run like only 4K footage, where this is kind of a mix of 4K and 1080p, it's definitely going to be able to do that as well. And so it kind of brings down to the reasoning of like, well, should you pick a 32 gigabyte RAM version versus just the 16 gigabyte RAM version? So I have some ideas on why you should pick one or the other, but I just wanted to do sort of a little demo here that you can run a lot of different things at the same time, and it's really not going to bog down the machine. Also, there's no cooling fans running. You don't hear like a jet engine in the background. A lot of the older Macs, they would really rev up, and the RPMs would crank on the fans, and you would hear it easily in the room, but my mic's not picking up anything. That's because the Mac right now is basically silent. Also, I'm running all of this just off of my external SSD, so it's definitely not like any sort of super powerful onboard SSD, and you can tell everything still runs perfectly fine. Now, some people might prefer a faster read-write speed for rendering and those sorts of things, and I totally understand that, but I'm just saying if you don't want to buy some of those more expensive things, or you don't want to spend the extra money on a larger hard drive for this, it's definitely not necessary. So that's basically the laptop for you. I hope that sort of combination stress test, so to speak, was helpful. I wanted to do more of a real world test rather than just running a bunch of benchmarks where you compare this laptop's performance to the next. What I would basically say is my M1 Mac Mini desktop that many of you may know that I've been running for about a year now from when it first came out was fantastic. It did absolutely everything that I wanted it to. And so when it came down to, needing more of a laptop for in-person meetings and school and things of that nature, I knew I needed to find a laptop. And so I just tracked down a used, 15-inch MacBook Pro off of Facebook. And it had an Intel i7 processor, but it was a lower spec 15-inch. And it could just not keep up with my Mac Mini. And so I ended up having to hold on to my Mac Mini for editing videos and doing some of those other like stressful tests and activities on my computer. And so once this laptop came out though, I knew that I could switch to it. And it's just blown me away with performance, and it's continuing to just shatter, benchmarks across the board. If you're really into benchmarks and kind of comparisons, definitely go check out a lot of the other tech YouTubers. They do a great job. But this laptop's truly incredible. And I knew that based on just Apple's like loose data, that this laptop would be almost double the performance of my Mac Mini. So I knew the lower processor would be enough for me, and I really wouldn't gain the workflow benefit out of the financial cost of getting the larger processor. Maybe that'll change in the future, but I just handle smaller modeling files, and I handle 1080p to 4K videos. And so trying to basically decide between the processors was fairly easy, but I really got stuck up on trying to decide which amount of RAM I should get. And I noticed once in a while that if I was running really large files in MATLAB, where I was loading large data files into programs, or even as you start to get into 4K footage, or if it's a longer video, it's going to be a larger file, and you start to hit some ceilings depending upon what sort of files you want to all condense into Premiere Pro or some of those other programs. Additionally, in Blender or some of the other 3D modeling softwares, I think AutoCAD you can get for Mac as well, but Blender's open source. It's just nice to have more RAM because you can load more 3D objects into your software and your computer's not going to bog as bad. And so I knew that with the style of these new unibody Macs, where they solder most of the components, if not all of them together, it's very, very challenging to upgrade your RAM, and I'd like to keep this laptop for a while. So I chose to upgrade to the 32 gigs of RAM, and I think I'm going to be really happy about that. But if you're just an everyday user and you just want the bigger screen, I'm sure 16 gigabytes will be perfectly fine for you. Just think if you have to load super large files, and we're talking gigabytes of size, into software that you use on a day-to-day basis, then 32 gigabytes is probably going to be a smart upgrade. Now, I've seen a lot of some of the other workflow specialists that talk about computers and how to save all of your data when you're doing lots of different photo shoots or video shoots, whatever it may be. And they're saying that for the speed of these new SSDs, which is actually incredible, the amount of money that you spend to upgrade your storage every time is actually a pretty good deal, because if you want to buy like an external M.2 like NVMe drive or some of those really fast SSDs that you would use in a PC, you're going to start spending around the same amount of money for the hardware upgrades. And so why not just upgrade it off the bat, and then it's all internal, you don't have to carry around anything. And I would agree with that. If you need the fastest transfer speeds because you're constantly unloading footage off SD cards, or you have lots of really large files, and so you can't just wait around all day to transfer 100 or a terabyte of data, then by all means, like, those faster SSDs are super important, and they honestly will do your job quicker, which probably means it increases your productivity and your ability to do things at a quicker speed for more clients, whatever it would be. You're going to have a positive benefit from that. But for my application, where I'm not using as large of files, and honestly, I don't move a ton of files back and forth from things. I do move a couple of gigabytes here and there, and I take a lot of photos and video. But even with the speeds that I have on my external SSD, some of my external hard drives, it seems to be plenty fast for me. So if I really need things to operate fast, I can always load them onto that 500 gigabyte SSD. But you can also just buy an external SSD and it'll be perfectly fine. And I don't need like a 1 terabyte SSD to run everything on. If I'm gonna start hitting file size issues, I just unload them off of the hard drive and put them on an external and let them sit. It doesn't need to be something fast where I'm constantly accessing it and the speed of the drive is gonna be an issue. So I still think you're better off just getting the 500 gigabyte SSD model. 1 terabyte maybe, but even the 500 gigabytes with just hooking up an external SSD is gonna be fine in my opinion. Half the time I work on all my video at my desk where I can use monitors rather than the screen. So once I do that, I instantly am plugging in my external SSD, and your external SSD can be however big you want. You can either buy one that's all one piece, or you can even buy just an external SSD housing and then buy an external SSD on Black Friday or something. So there's lots of more economical ways to get that extra storage. And so it just kind of depends on if you need the best of the best because you move a lot of files, or if you can do with a little slower speed because you don't move that large of files. And therefore, it's probably about the same time you would be waiting. So that's kind of my thoughts on whether you need the upgraded RAM or not, as well as the upgraded SSD or not. And I think that the M1 Pro is going to be incredible for just about everyone. Most people, the M1 Maxes are outperforming some of their desktop PCs that they've always used to edit with. So I have a hard time believing that everyone needs the M1 Max because these are expensive, and honestly, it takes a little bit to decide to buy one of these, and to just willy-nilly do a $200 to $500 upgrade here and there, I think takes some serious thought because it's not an affordable machine. You definitely have to spend quite a bit of money on these, but for the amount of value that I personally get out of having a machine like this, it's definitely worth it. But that's kind of my take on which upgrades you should choose and which you shouldn't. So I hope this video was helpful for you. I hope I didn't repeat myself too much and you kind of gained some value from this. I think that a lot of the quantifiable data and metrics for figuring out whether this PC is 5% better than the next is always hard for me to really determine if I actually am going to be able to gain any value from upgrading my computer or my hardware. And so what I just wanted to do was provide sort of a down-to-earth, real-world application and review, and just talk through why I wanted to still upgrade to this. And I hope my reasons made sense. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe if this brought you any sort of value, or if you want to see more content from my channel. And I will catch you all in the next video.